So another interesting property with dampness around a chimney breast. It's really important to understand this. I recently saw a video from Roger Bisbee on a similar subject, and I'm not sure I necessarily agree with him, but I'd be interested on his feedback. Anyway, in this case, we've got dampness around a chimney breast. There is dampness on the single glazed window, showing me that there's excess vapor in the property. So that has to be a starting point for any consideration. And what has happened here is this dampness has been there for a few years. They removed the chimney and tiled over it. But it made absolutely no difference. And really an important thing about this is that there's no brown staining. If water was passing through a chimney breast or any wall or past timber, you would expect to see a brown staining. It's darkened because it's damp, but it's not stained. And if you look at any of the other videos I do, you'll see there's quite a distinctive difference between penetrating damp and, in this case, condensation. Some people might wonder whether hygroscopic salts. You would tend to get hygroscopic salts on the wall itself, not so much on the ceiling. So there's the condensation forming on the window. So there's a heated towel rail or drying rack, which are disasters. It just speeds up the process of moving water from wet clothes onto a cold wall. There's no bathroom extractor fan, which is going to be a challenge, but I do understand that they keep the window open and door closed. And I've encouraged them to, if they are going to use the towel rail, use it in another part of the property with the dehumidifier near it. They have a dehumidifier, and it is a 20-litre dehumidifier, but they don't use it constantly. And I think to sort this damp out, they're going to have to hit all the buttons. So looking through the thermal imaging camera, you see a slight heat loss around the chimney breast where there's dampness. Perhaps not as much as you might expect, but that's because it wasn't particularly cold outside on that day. I think in the middle of the night, you would see a much greater contrast. If it was heated indoors and cold in the loft, I think you would see a huge contrast. But anyway, we'll look at the reasons for the heat loss in a second. So in the loft, I found that there was missing insulation from that damp patch. What had happened was when the chimney breast people, or the roofers, replaced the chimney and did any work on the roof, they removed right. Really important to understand is that around a chimney breast, you have a single brick. A normal wall is made of 2 bricks. Around the chimney, what they do is they open up that space, the void, and put in a single brick. So you've only got a single brick between the inside downstairs and the cold loft. And the loft is going to have a similar temperature to the outside for much of the time. So what I did was I put the insulation back. I insulated at the top of the loft, the top of the chimney breast in the void, making sure that it didn't fall down. And that should solve a majority of the problems. Actually, it would have been better if I put insulation on top of that brickwork. Maybe I did. Oh yes, there we go. I did afterwards. And right into the corner, into the eaves as much as possible. I just redistributed. Some of it was just lying around. This is another zone. This is above, I think this is the cupboard, and I put a bit of insulation there as well. So the chimney breast, the chimney stack has been removed and the whole roof retiled, and it made zero difference. You can see that some of the air can flow in behind, which isn't a problem. It's just to illustrate that it is going to be quite cold around the top of that chimney, which is why you need insulation. So in the past, they did have some past damp proofing treatment. So clearly condensation was an issue in the past because it's the normal reason for damp proofing. But this is bizarre in this case because they put the damp proofing above a clear damp proof course. Can't quite understand why anyone would do that. So have a look at the data loggers, and I can see some massive improvements. I didn't have a logger from before, but clearly they're doing a lot to try and reduce the vapor levels to below the outside temperature, which is what you need to do. So I'm expecting the ceiling to dry in a few months. I'll be really interested to hear from the owner if that has happened. Please do leave a comment. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So here's the data logger system. It's at damp.ai/detect. I've already preloaded it, but you just upload your data, which you will have downloaded into a file. You take it off loggers using the sensor app, or I'm trying to make it for lots of different data loggers, but that one works anyway for now. So you graph it. I put in the temperature of 8.7 at 3 o'clock. And I try and take it away from the time that was calibrating it. But so you graph it, and that then gives you the surface relative humidity, this line here. So this is really important insofar as if you're hitting 100%, which you do on Friday the 23rd at 6:30, then you are likely to get condensation. And if you've got long periods with high surface relative humidity above 85%, which you have here, you have a risk of mold. At the moment, there isn't mold, and mold begets mold. So if you start to grow mold, you're liable to get more mold. So something to be careful of. I'll go through each one of the lines. So this red line is the surface temperature. So it's taking the actual temperature of the data logger, applying a difference between the actual temperature and the temperature at the time of the survey, because obviously the data logger is not necessarily going to be in the coldest zone. There can be a 2-3 degree difference in temperature, not least because the data logger itself is producing its own temperature heat from the battery. You've got the dew point line, and the dew point line is really, really important because it's both a measure of the amount of vapor in air and the temperature that condensation forms at. So if this dew point line hits the surface temperature line, condensation will form, which it does here. You want to keep the dew point, the internal dew point, below the outside temperature, because you'll see that there is a difference between the surface temperature, but at times the outside temperature is going to meet the internal surface temperature. Now, this was during a period of stormy weather, and it's not that penetrating damp was occurring. There wasn't water coming through the building. It's because when it's wet outside, there's a lot of vapor in the outside air, and when you're ventilating, you're throwing out internal air with internal vapor, and you're replacing it with external air with external vapor, and you need a much longer period of ventilation when it is wet outside. And that's why a lot of people that come from colder countries find it hard to adapt to the English ventilation requirements. We in London and most of the UK need to have a lot more ventilation, at least half an hour, possibly longer, with the door closed and in your case the window open, but that's a slower process than using the vent because obviously it needs airflow as well. The other line to look at, so this is this pink line is the external temperature, and this light blue line is the external vapor. I would also, if you had more than one data logger, I'd be showing the vapor differential, which would be the difference between the vapor in one room compared to another room, but we don't have that, but that's fine. In my experience, most of your vapor is going to come from drying clothes, and then the rest of it is going to come from the bathroom, as well as your own respiration, and nothing we can do about that. But we have to acknowledge that we release roughly 750 millilitres of water as vapour every day. So each person contributes about 2 litres per person per day. Half a litre from showering, and that's per shower. Half a litre from drying clothes. A quarter of a litre from cooking, but lots of different methods change the amount of vapour. So cooking potatoes and pasta. But you can reduce the amount of vapour release by 80% by cooking with tops on pots and pans, and make sure to keep the ventilation working for the rest of the property, because vapour rises, and if you've got a lot of humidity downstairs, and I did notice that it's been damp proof, so it's not going to be absorbed into the walls downstairs, and it's going to show up elsewhere, and in this case it's chimney breast. So I pointed a fan at the chimney because that will help speed up the drying process, as will the insulation. So fingers crossed that in a month or so you'll be reporting positively and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.